Evening, everybody. We're going to call the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee in order. Staff will be running this meeting. Nicholas Watnowski is no longer a current member of the CTAC committee, and Tim is out on business. So on completion of this meeting, Tim will be the new chair due to the bylaws, and we'll need to have a conversation about holding a vote for the next CTAC meeting for the vice chair position, which would be traditionally held by the city of Fredericksburg. So we'll do that. I'm going to do a quick roll call and we can begin. Tamara Banks.
Yeah.
Ruby
Bravo.
Thank
Here.
you. Joe Brito.
Here.
Rupert Farley.
Here.
Robert Fogg.
Here.
Larry Gross.
Here.
David McLaughlin.
Here.
Al Watkins.
Here.
Clinton Wells.
Here.
Kevin Wilkinson.
Here.
All right. Do we have anybody joining us online as a member?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on. Not getting any captions. Yeah.
I'll just mention it.
Are they?
I heard the speaker come on and say something. Said we're now recording.
Yes.
Everyone speak that's online.
Hey, this is Coley.
All right. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the January 10th CTAC agenda?
This is Rupert, so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the November 8th, 2023 CTAC minutes?
This is Rupert, so move.
Do I have a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
One exception, because I was not here.
Okay. At this point in time, members of the public are allowed to have 3 minutes to make comment on the agenda. Do you have any public comment, or does anybody else have public comment?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Connor, we did receive.
Here you are. Why you're here?
Sure. My name is Monty Saban. I'm a resident of the city. I recently retired, interested in community service, and thought I'd come observe the meeting to see if you guys want to know.
Welcome. All right, we did receive course letter. Connor, would you like to?
So there was a letter from Jane Leeds and Coley is online and they will be reading.
Hi, yes, thank you very much. This is Coley and corresponding, like y'all just said, for Jane Leeds. FAMPO members may be looking forward to a new year, but about a quarter of the GWRC's residents are not. Although the disabled, aged, and financially challenged are invited to your monthly meetings, the only concerns addressed are those of enabling single drivers to commute to their jobs or do all the things that maintain their quality of life. The overused excuse are always the same, that there is no funding for audible signals, light rail systems, better and more resources related to accessibility issues for Fredericksburg Go, the VRE, and Amtrak. There is no funding for that is a lie told all across the country. It is a matter of priorities. It is also a very important matter relating to employment. None of the members of the GWRC policy committee use the VRE or Fredericksburg Go on a regular basis, if at all. How can you understand the scope of needs and how resources are to be used if you are not impaired? Young impaired people are trained by our school budgets to work when they have no safe, reliable, accessible, or affordable transportation. So they become tax users, not taxpayers, warehoused in government programs paid for by you and everyone else who is employed or has a retirement check. The cost of maintaining their lives is far greater than the cost of providing transportation infrastructure they require. Quality of life demands transportation. It is the single and biggest obstacle for those who are challenged. If you doubt my reasoning, give me your car keys for 2 weeks and use public transit. Even then, you have an advantage because most of you are not limited physically and or financially. I know the difference as I used to drive a car and traveled far and wide in the USA and beyond. Many who are impaired live outside major cities where more resources are available. They simply cannot afford to live there in order to use those resources. We have resources, but they are not well used because they are not meaningful, reliable, or accessible like the car parked in your driveway. Sorry, did I interrupt something?
No, you're
Okay.
good, continue.
The kind of travel and resources I am suggesting are clearly not a priority by FAMPO, the Board of Supervisors, or the Commonwealth. This is extremely short-sighted and discriminatory. The tokenism that has been applied by your planning is offensive and demeaning. None of the so-called improvements offered have significance or have improved our quality of life. The resources for offering rides, e.g. mobility options and commuter buses, are so seriously underfunded or inaccessible that it renders them generally useless to those who are impaired, aged, or financially challenged. I have tried to share information about other cities that have built light rail systems. No one would even take the time to look at or discuss them. It takes a decade or more to acquire right-of-way. That is optimal to the success of such a system. Design the infrastructure, stations, equipment, and other resources to make such a system available and meaningful. Wasting money and resources on quote-unquote dirty microsystems of transport, commuter buses, and the railless VRE makes no sense in the long run. Europe, Asia, and cities in the USA have proven that point time many times over. Businesses and entertainment tourism venues flourish and quickly attach themselves to light rail systems. Quite simply, we are missing more than acquiring ridership, but having a pollution-free system enhances the health of the region as a whole. Evidence of climate change is all around us and the world at large. Enabling single drivers is a fool's game. I lived in California for 20 years and saw firsthand the pollution, gridlock, and waste of fuel, time, and resources keeping cars on the freeways. 6 and 7 lanes of vehicles traveling in both directions were parking lots almost every day of the week during rush hour and holidays. My
All
final
right,
point. Thank you.
we've reached the 3-minute mark. Thank you. Okay. All right.
Dr. John, can we, in the future during public comment, if there is going to be a correspondent like that, have the link to it or included in our packet or something?
Yeah, we received this either late last night or this morning.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
But yes,
Are you able to email it out to us so we have it?
we can do that.
Thank you.
Good.
Or at least do the online copy that you post.
Yep. Okay, so with public comment closed, opening up VDOT, or if there's a transit reporter problem, if any of the CTAC members have something that they would like to share with our VDOT representative or another transportation related issue, we can do that at this time.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it possible to get a copy of which bus stops VDOT owns and which shelters? I had made that request last year about who owns what stops. And I know VDOT does own some stuff like that.
I'm right here and I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
I'm sorry, just the bus shelters? or-
Whichever bus stops
Okay.
or shelters that you own, I would like a list.
Oh.
So I'm requesting a list of who owns what bus stops
Oh,
or shelters.
Okay, I'd like to say, I want to commend VDOT for the paving of Kellogg Mill Road. The wedge widening really improved it, and there's a lot of bang for the buck there. Also, at the last meeting I attended, I mentioned a tree was leaning real bad, and VDOT cleared it out within days after I pointed it out, and it was a pretty significant tree, it's like 36 inches, and it would have probably fell yesterday with that wind, so I'm glad it was taken care of.
yeah.
I will pass along the good news, or at least not negative news.
Is that it? All right, we'll close that. Item 7 is an action item and discussion item. At the last meeting, it was proposed that we take a.
I have a proposal.
Yes.
Since Nicholas is no longer our chair, he's the chair of this, if you will, he's the chair for this item. And he's not here, and we don't have a chair. I would propose is the CTAC bylaws amendments are very critical, but this one is not time critical. And I would propose that we defer this until a subsequent meeting when we have an appointed chair.
Second.
You have a second? Or is there any discussion?
If I understand correctly, that we're proposing to skip this item because we have no chair.
It's
Just
no current.
deferring it.
Defer it and bring it at a potentially a later point in time.
So this was evidently, according to him, this was proposed by the person who was your chair, who
Yes.
is now no longer here. But not only is he not here, your vice chair, who could effectively speak on his behalf, is not here either.
But yeah, this sounds reasonable.
Okay.
But
Any further discussions? Okay, all in favor of the motion to, I guess you would say, to table the amendment discussion for a later time, say aye.
I.
Opposed? Wonderful. Thank you. That was staff's opinion too, but I couldn't. It's like, please don't make me do this. Okay, item 8, tip amendments and modifications. We do have a laundry list of tip amendments going in front of the policy committee, a few modifications, as well as rollover projects that were a carryover item from the previous tip, which was 21-24, that are now for 27. We have an amendment to approve funding allocations relating to the Route 1 and Exit 126 southbounds. It's moving kind of smart scale funding around, as well as approving the annual obligations report that we receive from VDOT each year. To endorse directing public comment for an amendment to the Transportation Improvement Program that is adding, I think, just over $3 million to the replacement of rolling stock for Fredericksburg Go. The rollovers that speak previously, I think there were 8 total projects. These have all been previously approved. They just need to be basically grafted into it because we approved the tip earlier in March. These are projects that come afterwards. Technically, they are enacted at the previous tip, but because they weren't approved in the new one, we got to basically reconfirm them. And then we also have modifications that are moving funds for various Fredericksburg Go alarm systems, operation and maintenance, and automatic passenger counters. So those are modifications. Do we have any questions? I know that this is a big, complex thing that we have to kind of dump, particularly if there's new members here. The Transportation Improvement Program is basically the large list that FAMPO is directed to maintain that ensures public outreach and participation with all transportation projects with regional significance or receiving federal dollars in the area. So anytime that there are changes to that, if they're minor changes, they're called modifications, and staff basically handles that and makes the policy committee aware of those changes. It doesn't require approval. But for amendments, which can usually includes adding or removing a project, swapping a significant amount of funds, changing the scope of the project so that, if we say it's going to end at city limits, and then we decide, no, it's going 5 miles into Spotsylvania, we come for a full amendment, and that requires a public comment period. Do I have any questions? Feel free, because this is typically what I get to do my day.
So I have a comment.
Yes.
I mean, A, B, D and E are really approving modifications to the plan to, adjustments of funding because the funding estimates are changed, moving available funds to roll over into the next year, which we have to do to make it balanced. I mean, I would propose that we endorse those in a block. The only other one is that the directing a public comment period for, this is C I'm looking at.
Correct.
Directing comment period, I would think we would definitely all support a CTAG, directing a public comment on anything. So I would move that we endorse all of these.
Second.
All right. Do I have any further discussion? All in favor? Say
Aye.
Any opposed? None carries. Okay. So we're moving quite quickly to item 9, staff updates. The last, we have since met since there was a, excuse me, let me walk back. We did not have our December meetings, so the last meetings that we have to report on are from November, where the the policy committee agenda mostly was a very large discussion over the Regional Transportation Authority. We also had other state delegates and representatives also in attendance. The general consensus and result of most of that meeting was that the policy committee is forming a subcommittee to kind of work through kind of the details and desires and goals of what the policy committee wants. It was a fairly general discussion that, at least with our state representatives in it, that it wasn't going to be, there wasn't a clear that they're going to rush forward with this with opening of the legislative session, which I believe is still currently open, but they were going to provide time and table taking it up in Richmond for the local officials to come in and have a conversation of how that, if that is something that the region wants and how that would potentially look, and go into a deeper dive over, you know, which projects would have been could be eligible, the funding sources or the tax involved, as well as the regional makeup. FAMPO did supply draft legislation that was basically modified from a previous round of submittal, McPike's bill, and the policy committee really just wanted to have more opportunity to kind of dig through those weeds. Part of the emphasis of having that discussion was November, that if it was decided that a bill was going to be submitted, they wanted to at least have input for that to happen. It looks like it's not likely to be the case, and that there's going to be additional time for the policy committee to discuss those items. Trying to think if there was any other item other than the open public comment for one of the TIP amendments. And I don't think there was anything that was major or pressing for that meeting. There's small conversations around smart scale, I believe, and a few funding items, but for the most part, that meeting was focused on the RTA.
Trying to remember, did the river crossing come up?
The river crossing, not as like a specific project to discuss.
Maybe it was a meeting prior, I think it came up, maybe that's what I'm thinking of, okay.
So it might have been in UPWP. I mean, there might have been a small thing where it was like tangential on the side just from the nature of approving a couple of documents. I think it was UPWP required approval, and it was in that. Yes.
Yeah, I attended that too. So, and I don't recall anything regarding the river.
Did you attend it?
Being discussed really. But regarding the RTA, one of the things as I sat there listening, and it was wonderful, first of all, to have a lot of our elected officials attend. And then they were very helpful, providing a lot of information regarding their actions in the past. But one of the things that bothered me a lot is that there were a lot of, or let's say a number of members who attended this meeting who had not recently attended any of the policy committee meetings. And it was evident that they weren't really familiar with what the RTA would have been all about. And they were missing a lot of the finer points and some very basic points regarding some of the choices that were before them that they were supposed to make at that particular meeting regarding the legislation. And thus, because they were unfamiliar with everything and had some, what I felt were incorrect impressions of what was going to take place, they were firmly against going forward with any legislation at that point. And then and that's one of the reasons that the subcommittee wound up being decided upon. But I would hope that members who don't attend meetings in the future on the policy committee will at least go and look at the video recordings that are made of the meetings so that they will make themselves familiar when they're going to be making an important decision.
Were these like newly elected officials or something?
There were members from the two more rural counties who normally don't attend the meetings, but there was at least one member, one supervisor from the city that was present, he didn't seem to know exactly what was going on and something of that sort.
So correct me if my memory is incorrect, but I thought the more rural counties, such as King George, don't actually have a vote on the RTA.
They, I believe that they actually
They
did.
can participate, but they don't actually have a
So
vote, isn't that
They
correct?
don't have a vote over the
Correct.
FAMPO. They are ex officio in capacity with the FAMPO board.
No, they have a vote, yeah,
Yeah,
well, did have a vote when I was there, but RTA, we had no say over. So why would they get to influence the decisions made?
They were under the impression, first of all, that it was going to be worthless to them to be involved. They also had the impression that there would be no money coming to their counties, which was not true because, you know, whatever money ultimately gets in, the decision would have been made to have some money come to FAMPO and then another percentage go to the counties and so forth, which would have allowed money to come to their county for them to use towards projects. But they were basically adamant that
Because
I
they
would be a
lack of
part of it
participation.
because we're not gonna get anything out of it.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you.
yes.
So who's gonna make it this, did they ever discuss who's gonna make it the subcommittee? Have they ever decided besides the local legislation?
So it would be members of the policy committees themselves. I think it was going to go back before their boards or councils to decide who is going to be kind of represented. In theory, any policy committee member can attend and participate. I don't think that's the issue, but it was be like, okay, if there is a discussion coming forth, it's just tell us who is going to be involved.
And that's for the subcommittee.
So for that, for the subcommittee,
And,
yes.
and I believe that some of the other elected officials had said that they wanted to be a part of
Yeah.
that committee as well. And I think other, let's say peripheral groups like VDOT and so forth would wind up being involved as well.
That's correct.
They rarely, at least historically, don't include the citizens.
Well, I'm gonna ask if they ask the policy committee to include some of the citizens.
Okay.
Give them education and start including them, because this will affect the people that actually live in these counties.
I do want to point out that, and, you know, those jurisdictions, the people in there are driving on our roads. So they're adding to the problem in other jurisdictions, and they want to help contribute to that.
I mean, they're generally right in one regard that a lot of the major projects, which the RTA would ultimately fund, would not generally go, would not be out in, you know, Caroline or in King George and so forth.
Correct.
And
But as the gentleman stated, these folks work in or shop in or
Right.
visit, and therefore, again, yeah.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, not everybody has the foresight to recognize.
And the majority of tax revenue would be coming from Stafford.
By
Spotsylvania,
population, right,
you know.
the larger population areas, yes.
And even if it's collected in like Central Park or Spotsylvania Mall, you know, there's a lot of Stafford people go there, and Spotsylvania people, so.
And I remember, Dr. Bright, yeah, the largest revenue stream probably would have been from whatever would come from sales tax.
Yeah, that was one of the revenue streams that was proposed by Mary Washington, the initial study that yielded one of the larger collections. So
I think it's what, 0.5%?
it was
Right.
at a half.
Okay, so you have builders and developers that build a house. And the average house has over $100,000 in building material. So 0.5% of that would be $500 coming from the building and development industry that will go to roads. 0.5% of 100,000, it's probably more like 120, 130,000
I mean,
in building material.
and some of the apprehension spoken about was that because Stafford County is attempting to raise their sales tax, and I think the city of Fredericksburg is also contemplating that as well. So this would have been an additional increase to sales tax for the RTA, upon the other sales tax increases.
Either that or the homeowner.
You
Somebody's got to pay.
can't spend money if you don't have it.
So it sounds like it would be worth going to the video of that session and listening in on this, if you hadn't listened to it, it's significant.
Right. I would agree.
Was that meeting November, you said?
This was in, yes, thank you. Okay, any other further comment? Okay.
That was good.
Yes.
Good, Alan, thanks.
I'm also on the Spotsylvania County Transportation Committee. And I think that most of our people understand where the tax is gonna come from. And, let me tell you, we desperately need them. We were talking a few minutes ago. And last month, when we looked at all the projects that we need in Spotsylvania, we don't have about 30% of the money that we need. We're talking to VDOT, we're talking bond money after bond money after bond money to get VDOT to come in with us to build these projects. And so when we're talking about an RTA, I can't speak for all the supervisors because I'm not one of them. But almost every one of the supervisors ran of an agenda that, hey, no new taxes. And if you do this, you're increasing taxes in what, 6 ways? And most of them are saying, hey, if I do this, I'm going against everything I promised my people. And it's hard for some of them. It's really hard for them. They understand how much we need that money. But they also understand that they're going back on their word at the same time. And that's not easy.
We don't need the money, want the money.
I will say that they were.
Maybe you don't. We need it in Spotsylvania.
Call it a need.
Yeah.
It's just a want. A bad, an unfortunate want, because the same want is what's got us in this mess that we're in with congestion and sprawl and wasted tax money, wasted energy. It's all from bad decisions just like that.
Well, you think each time there's a accident, 95 shut down, Route 1 shut down, the whole area gets shut down, and that's like a tax on everybody. Because we're sitting in there for hours at a time with the engine idling. The businesses are losing revenue, so we're losing tax revenue from that. So it's costing us millions of dollars a year in tax revenue.
Which we could be gaining in toll revenue if you use congestion pricing instead.
But you have to keep an alternative. If we're gonna do congestion, I'm not saying don't do congestion pricing, but if we're gonna do the congestion pricing, you have to give the people an alternative. Right now,
That's what the tolls are for. The tolls that you get from congestion pricing go towards the transit for everybody else. That's why it's a great deal for people that don't want to own cars or can't afford to own cars.
Which is
But you're penalizing everybody else.
Unless you've got something against transit.
Mr.
Okay, all right. If it's okay with the committee, can I continue on for the Safe Streets for All update? That's okay. All right, kind of keep bring that up. So we have just received kind of the initial list of corridors that the Safe Streets for All project has identified and is has both showed this to the staff of the jurisdictions as for attack, as well as this is going to be going forward for the policy committee as well. What we hope to gain through this is that we're actually going to get some very general engineering and estimates of how these corridors can have kind of good application of safety improvements that will be eligible for later grants for the implementation phase. So this was our capacity of going through and doing our homework of our local network and identifying corridors of interest that had specific safety concerns. And now the consultants are going to be developing an implementation plan and cost estimates for this. So we're going to have projects that should come out of this pretty darn ready to apply for other federal implementation grants for Safe Streets for All. This is a George Washington project, so there are King George and Caroline County projects included, but Stafford, Fredericksburg, and Spotsylvania all have corridors that were identified. So we're making this available. If you do have comments or see anything, please let us know. If you have something that you would like to see different, let us know, and or have a conversation with your jurisdictions to kind of go through the project. I won't go through them all, but we've made that available for folks for review. Yes.
I don't know if you can answer or if VDOT can answer. I do have a particular question
Sure.
again, just because of so many years of being engaged in King George regarding the Indian Town project.
Okay.
So I noticed that the intent is to upgrade the non-existent shoulders to composite or paved shoulders. Is there any plan to actually put in any type of bike lanes other than just adding shoulders? And the second question was with regards to the rumble strips that you intend to add to the road. So evidently some road out in King George, VDOT just did one of these improvements and put in the rumble strips, and all of the bikers are all over Facebook going, I almost crashed because of these new rumble strips. We have a ton of bikers who bike to Dahlgren using these roads. And so I'm not sure, I can find out if necessary exactly what road, but I'm assuming VDOT would know.
No, we already.
You already are aware. So I'm wanting to make sure we don't have the same type of situation where it's impacting the bikers because we're not taking them into account. Does that make sense? And again, sorry, I know I'm here
no.
for Stafford,
Yeah.
but
No,
I still have an affinity for King George.
So I don't think that there's explanation or expectation for bike lanes, just because I think the scope was very much specific on what type of safety improvements. And my guess is that the rumble strips were identified in areas that there was a high road departure crash rate. But I can definitely follow up with the project lead to get further information.
Sure, I would appreciate it.
Is it, sorry, can I ask a question? So is it, are you saying that bicycles shouldn't have to slow down? I mean, the purpose of rumble strips is to slow people down. I mean, a bicycle doing 30 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour can really hurt a pedestrian instead of it, so.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I guess the way the rumble strips have been designed and because they go into in this case, the road actually has a bike lane, and because
Right.
it goes into the bike lane, the way they're hitting it, it's made for a car, it's not made for a bike. And so
But if they slow down at the rumble strip, they wouldn't have that.
It stops, for a cyclist, slowing down can actually increase instability a little bit. So actually doing that at a slower speed might actually make it feel more jarring.
So it's not an opposite.
It's the speed requirement for the rumble strips as well.
But why do they need to go into the bike lane? I guess is the question. And
Slow them down. So it's not an opposition to have some sort of slowing device in the bike lane for bicycles.
right, but it's designed for the car.
Engineering of it is, yes. Okay, I got you. All right, I see. Thank you.
And are you sure now that they're talking about actual rumble strips that run across the?
Yes,
road?
because it's a new improvement on one of the roads in King George. I just can't remember the
Okay,
name of the
because,
road.
I have a question. This is Glenn. I also have a question when you're done. I'm sorry.
We've heard the complaint in Spotsylvania of the edge rumble strips that they put on the roads. That, like every foot and a half apart. So that what you were talking about, I think, that whether you leave the road and you.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about. I think this is
that
different.
the bikers absolutely hate that.
Yeah.
That's.
I think
I thought
this is different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
because
for
that's
the
something
safety of
that,
the vehicles, like John said, for road departure
Mhm.
and
yes,
whatnot.
Mhm.
But the other comment that I've heard that is makes it too narrow for bikes to comfortably use it because of the rumble strips, right?
Yeah, that's the problem that they hate the most. Yeah, because they don't, if they avoid that on the side off the road, they're running off into the gravel and a chance of losing it.
Yes,
Or if they come on the inside of it, they're getting a chance of getting hit.
right. And so, and I guess I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, we're all trying to alleviate congestion on our roads and encourage people to take alternative transportation. But then if we're doing these road safety improvements, which then deter them from using these alternative transportation such as a bicycle, we're kind of defeating the purpose.
Um, Ruby, what's your last name?
Bravo, Brabo.
I also wanted to make you aware that, Stephen Haynes retired. He was with VDOT for like 37 years. And Cassie Lord will be the new, planning manager. And she's very, very active in all of those Facebook, Nextdoor, all of those groups. And she's not afraid to make comments. So if you see her name, pop up, you'll know that, you know, she's with VDOT here in this district.
Okay, good.
And she's the one who actually brought it to our attention.
I was complaining. Yes, okay, very good.
So I do believe the recommendation is that that document's going to go up for public comment either at the next PC or in February. And they're looking to try to get at least some form of adoption or later in the spring so that over the summer that they can start applying for federal grants with Safe Streets for All. Give a timeline of that.
I think Glenn wanted to make a comment. He's online.
Yes, Glenn? Glenn, you still with us?
It says he's trying to speak.
Maybe he muted himself by accident.
I don't believe so. I don't see the mute button.
Send us a sign, Glenn.
You just spoke
Yeah,
minutes ago.
a second ago.
I can try muting him and unmuting him.
Okay, if Glenn, if you can join us, just let us know when you're ready and I'll pause. Next item, was the congestion mitigation, air quality and surface transportation block grant. So this is a competitive grant program that FAMPO administers directly that allows for our jurisdictions and transit providers to submit applications, and proposals for projects. We're currently open for fiscal year 2030. There's some 2028 and 2029 funds available, but unfortunately Stafford TMA, so North Stafford was the only eligible recipient available for those, mostly because they didn't actually submit an application in the last round and we kind of parked the funds to let them submit an application this round. But we had 36 applications from Fredericksburg, Stafford, Spotsylvania, and Fredericksburg FXBG Go. It's about $70 million requested. This grant is going to only provide about $6 million. We do have caps in place, and traditionally we fund 2 projects, either 2 highway, 2 active transportations, 2 transit programs, and up to 2 studies. We are looking to have scoring for this done next week, but we've just made all the applicants aware that all the projects that we've currently received, and we're still going for a little bit of screening items with this. So a few of the applicants can kind of change minor things with their application. Kind of if you go to the next one. So yeah, we had close to $70 million. This is a lot of asks. This will be the final year that we do a 1-year allocation. After this, we're going to do it every other year. So it'll be 2 years worth of funding, just so that we can start kind of planning and pacing. We're going to do it opposite of Smart Scale, the other big state competitive funding programs, so that staff isn't trying to complete multiple submissions across multiple kind of funding partners that happen almost yearly. So go next slide. So The projects that the jurisdiction submitted are currently available, the name and everything. We're gonna be having a deeper dive and getting into the analytics of them probably on the next meeting. But couple of items to kind of point out just from a regional interest is that every single jurisdiction submitted a Route 1 access management or a similar project. They're not necessarily together, but we saw that as a general trend. You do have some uniqueness also happening, like for CMAC, the city traditionally submits active projects. Counties South Savannah tends to submit more roadway projects on that front, and Stafford kind of has a larger mix. We do have 2 projects that are sponsored by Spotsylvania through Fredericksburg Go, so the Route 1 Transfer Center at Kalahari and the 208 Border Extension are happening in the county, but the rest of the Fredericksburg Go applications are jurisdiction-wide. So those are the current projects that FAMPO staff, Connor and I are currently involved with, yes.
The Harrison Road widening project, it's next to the bottom.
Yes.
Is that section of Harrison Road that's never been widened before between?
It's
Burton and
no, actually, the scope of that project is Salem Church to Route 1. So, and it's a study. So right now they are applying for funds to take a look at that.
I think we were only to go halfway. Break that up into about 3 projects from Salem Church over to Route 1 because of the huge amount of money it's gonna take. We only come back halfway to 95 and then from there to 95 and then 95 over to Route 1.
Yeah, that bridge would probably be significant.
Okay.
John, questions? If we want to dig more into these projects, is there a site we can go to or something we can?
The project specifics aren't available yet. They will be, because currently applicants can still make amendments to their project. And so until we close that out completely, and we don't want other applicants to be able to look over each other's shoulders to try to score and, you know.
So moving forward, the list will be next down to a lesser number. Is that what you're saying?
We are scoring every single one of these projects.
They'll all go forward.
They'll all go forward. There is a quantitative methodology with scoring criteria that FAMPO staff has had the TAC adopt for this process. Actually, the policy committee did. And that's what we're applying basically once the screening is done. So
at some point, we will be able to see details of the project.
yes, everything becomes public once we've kind of done.
Would that be the end of the month, January?
January will have most of the document scoring and formulas available. The total packet will probably come out in March.
Okay.
So. Yes.
I have a few questions. Some are yellow, some are blue. What's the differentiation?
Okay, that is the pot of funds, whether or not it's a congestion mitigation air quality pot of funds or STBG surface transportation block grant funds. Congestion mitigation, there's an air quality element. Every single project has to show at least some air quality benefit or it's screened out. Okay. In previous years, for scoring, it's been up to 40%. That was a comment from staff that was a little bit too much. And so right now it's acting about 10% of the total scoring, but that's the difference. The STBG methodology follows the CTAC methodology, just with the air quality benefit removed. And with the exception of studies, which is has its own methodology. And in the TMA North Stafford's case, North Stafford, Fredericksburg Go, kind of region-wide, is the only eligible applicant for STBG active and transit projects. So that's the reason why you don't see Spotsylvania County asking for STBG active, because it's a part of the agreement with the North Stafford being kind of part of the DC area, and we get they're dividing funds a little bit.
So Fredericksburg Go is something that obviously is newer since I left the board. So what is?
It's Fred Transit.
That's what I assumed, but I just wanted to confirm that. And then, so do I understand you correctly that since I left the board in 2019, that as of today, Caroline and King George no longer have a seat at the table with FAMPO? Is that what I'm hearing from
They
you?
have to say, I don't think they are voting members.
So we had one vote each as of 2019. So you're saying you don't think we have a vote any longer on those boards?
So Caroline and King George aren't members of FAMPO to my knowledge. It's officially a part of the NPO.
Okay,
So,
and
but
so is that why there's no project?
they're not eligible for this pot of funds. They have other sets of pot of funds that they're eligible. for,
Interesting.
Being
Okay.
a part of the rural county.
Okay, interesting.
GWRC tends to oversee. And so that's why there's sort of an overlap, and John can tell you the rural transportation plan, it's a requirement of.
Yes, I'm
George
very
and
familiar.
Caroline.
Yes.
That used to be under the scope of FAMPO's UPWP, Unified Planning Work Program,
Yes.
and now it's not.
The
Oh.
feds have since then, if you're
Interesting.
NPO, they built a brick wall in between that.
Yeah.
Although we share a staff
Yeah.
member, we have to keep all of our payroll kind of separate.
Yeah, that I
on
do,
that.
yeah. So, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say before, if you've been in this world before, as in everything with transportation, STBG
Yes,
used to be RSTP, Regional Surface Transportation
yes.
Program.
Yes.
Just so you know, they're the same thing, different
Just
names.
different names, kind of like Fredericksburg
Just like
South.
they do with
Okay.
earmarks and discretionary funds, they're like 6 terms.
So do King George and Caroline currently have someone representing them at the FAMPO meetings?
Yes, so they're invited.
I know they're
but they
invited,
don't, they do send a specific representative, they just don't have the capacity to vote.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
But they're, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, moving on, I'm gonna provide a update for the River Crossing Parkway NEPA alternative studies. So late last fall and into winter, our consultants, Michael Baker, have basically been in a deep data dive and data collection. So you might have seen they've installed traffic counters at specific locations. They've asked the jurisdictions for like their GIS utilities, historic resources. They've been basically pulling and digging up a lot of data. They are looking to hold their first stakeholder meeting with the county staff and representatives later this month, where they're going to just show the procedures and kind of the scope of the project, as well as have a conversation that says, okay, now that we've gotten a lot of this data, is this making sense? Is this not? So they're kind of in the QA for their data analysis. And we're still on pace that we're looking to actually start having public meetings and workshops, most likely in March or in April. The timeline is currently on schedule for that. And that they should be starting to produce some more general, like available to the public data within the next couple of months. So they're still, I think they're still looking for a couple other pieces of data or trying to get confirmations with some of their modeling work, but otherwise they are kind of in the deep dives of just collecting and building up that database for their analysis. So.
You said meeting with county staff.
Mhm.
Is this with Stafford County staff?
This is with all, so they'll be meeting with City of Fredericksburg, Stafford County, Spotsylvania County, all in the same one meeting. VDOT staff, VDOT Central Office is also part of the participation due to the City of Fredericksburg's legal agreements with river frontage. The Virginia Outdoor Foundation is a required entity for that as well. And I'm trying to think if I'm not missing anybody else. We might have, well, Fredericksburg goes included through the city, and I don't know if DRPT or is included or will be at that meeting. I think they might have gotten an invite. So transit providers are available, are included as well. I know it's not the most exciting thing. It's just this thing kind of goes into a hole, and we just want to make sure everybody's aware that it's kind of still going on, but it's in kind of like the data collection and initial analysis and first sketch type. So any questions on that? Okay, moving on to Route 3 corridor of statewide significance. The FAMPO board provided a letter last November. FAMPO staff is trying to get Route 3 to be considered. There's large implications that if you make this a corridor of statewide significance, it actually opens up various funding opportunities, as well as that since the corridors of statewide significance was originally developed and designed, we have actually not had an addition. So FAMPO's, both the board and kind of with staff, has sent this to the jurisdictions all along the Route 3 corridor. So from Culpeper all the way down to Gloucester. So that's making aware that this is something that we care for and that if they are interested as well, to start having conversations, both with their state legislatures, VDOT, because we understand that not every jurisdiction is going to have the same view. But I think for a lot of folks, Culpeper through Spotsylvania acknowledge that this is kind of a big item, but we also are very curious how the Northern Neck and further down, what items that they would like with it. Yeah.
So as someone who was one of the founding members of the Northern Neck Tourism Commission and worked hand in hand with the Northern Neck Planning District, when I saw this on the agenda, I called Lisa Hall and I said, so they at the Northern Neck Planning District have been working on this for a long time, but unfortunately being a smaller entity, they don't have the voice that FAMPO does. So she had not been aware that I guess they didn't get your letter maybe. So she was ecstatic and thrilled. My recommendation would be that you contact the director of the Northern Neck Planning District and get a supportive letter to go with Ms. Baumke's letter so that everyone knows that the entire Northern Neck is 100% behind this, as they've been advocating for this since 2012.
Jerry Davis.
Yeah, is he still? I didn't know if he was still
Yes,
there. I
he's
knew
still
Lisa
there.
was, that's why I spoke with her, but Jerry Davis is still
And they
there.
have a
Okay.
meeting coming up, maybe this coming Monday, if not, I think it's this coming Monday, so you
Yeah.
might wanna
So I would
send it along before
Yep.
then.
Yeah, they had, sellers who used to be on the board supervisors. She got appointed to the Commonwealth Transportation Board. They invited her to their Northern Neck Planning District meeting. Again, they've been advocating for this since 2012. Why? To get the additional funding to keep the roads improved. So unfortunately, there's a ton of tractor trailer traffic that goes through there. And so they've been slowly over time trying to create sections where there's a pass by, so to speak, that's on the shoulder where a car can pass that tractor trailer that is hauling a big load and is maybe traveling 40 miles an hour when the speed limit's 55 on Route 3. And so they've been able to do a couple of those. But what happens is because of that tractor trailer and it's only 2 lanes going down the Northern Neck, then you wind up with miles of traffic just slowly traversing.
It also is a requirement to receive smart scale funding. And right now, that's one of our
So there you
largest
go.
revenue.
Yeah, and so they can't get it done. Yeah. Mhm.
Any questions on that front? Okay.
Interesting.
The last item, performance and safety targets. This is actually something that's been slightly postponed right now. We're waiting for VDOT to supply the safety targets that traditionally FAMPO will endorse the state's safety targets for this region. We might have had the state of good repair items complete, but we tend to bundle those. But that's something that's coming up. We don't have it now. It's not quite ready. We're hoping that we're going to have it, but that'll be something that's coming before y'all to get a look at a later point in time. Traditionally, smaller MPOs, which we would do, take on the whatever the state kind of designates as its like safety targets. Very rarely, because there's significant federal requirements of how you do those safety targets, that if an MPO wishes to break out and do their own, it's a pretty heavy lift. So you traditionally don't see that unless it's in the largest of large MPOs, but give you an idea that that's coming up. And that does include public comment on it as well. All right. Any further questions or anything that you would like to ask staff?
The only other comment I would make is just because of how we did things in the past. So when FAMPO or GWRC would submit a letter, such as Ms. Baumke is doing here, the other entity would also include a letter of endorsement. So in other words, George Washington Regional Commission, that chair would include a letter of endorsement as well, because again, it appears King George and Caroline aren't really part of FAMPO anymore. So by having that letter from the George Washington Regional Commission, then you're including King George and Caroline as showing support as well, which I know King George, unless the new majority would suddenly be against it, also has always been in favor of it.
Okay. All right, community reports, member reports, topics of interest, partner information, and I'll make one amendment at the very bottom if it's okay, just for.
I just want to get, we can be held accountable. We get a lot of things that can hear, I'm sorry, I know. We get a lot of public comment and they're never followed up on. I would like to follow up on this Leeds letter, if I may, for next month. But I'm finding that when we get this information from the public, there is no follow-up. And I know that firsthand because I asked about that turn up there by Hughes Home, where that is Dixon Street and I mean, what is it? This Dixon, where you go
Dixon and
down
Princess
Dixon,
Anne.
Princess Anne,
Yeah.
thank you. That turn there, and I know you said there's gonna do a study, but I think we need to get away from these studies. Someone needs to go out there. Again, I almost got sideswiped. I don't go down there anymore because my mom is not in that vicinity. But there's gotta be better follow-up with the public, especially if we want public comment. When the public comes in and says X, Y, Z, and then we don't follow up with them, they feel like they're not being heard. And I think that's also the issue I have with the policy committee about what they want to do with public comment. I'm strongly against them shorting it because the public can't get here this time of night. And as far as you know, there's no transportation this time of night. But if we give them a follow-up, even if it's just on a Facebook page or a letter or smoke signal, I think we get more public comment because in our bylaws, it does state that we are to solicit public comment. And without that, we're not gonna know what the people want.
Yeah, we actually, I don't know if you were there for that meeting, but we actually did have follow-up with Basama Mem, the city engineer, over that, as well as that they were going to look and do a reassessment and send city staff out there to see if and what could be done on a short-term basis, as well as add it in their kind of their medium-term revamp. So
Yeah, I did not know, and that, again, I did not know about that because the only thing I had requested was a traffic mirror. So that way you can see the cars and also there's a bus route that has to go down and make that turn.
yes,
The gentleman that I spoke with the orange van, he told me he was not moving it. He was just not moving it. I don't even know if he was the owner or whoever, but that is a dangerous spot. And there's a lot of dangerous spots that we really need to kind of look into when it comes to just personal driving and bus, the bus thing. The last topic of interest is about supporting FXB Go, Fredericksburg Go. We really need to kind of support, the more people ride, the better it is on congestion and everything like that. But there are some things that we don't speak about here. And I don't know if Ms. Jackson is on the line, but there's a lot of concerns that we do have with public transit and basically its usage. They are going through a TSP, but if people that don't ride make the decisions, they're gonna end up making the wrong decisions. So I'm just asking everybody just a little bit more support for FXB Go and get involved in it. Just get involved. We'll be out next week and for the TSP.
What is TSP?
The Transit Strategic Plan.
Okay.
Transit Strategic Plan.
Okay, and when you say we will be out for those rides, what does that mean?
Oh, I always say, so.
Okay, I just want,
So next week they're gonna be people riding, asking opinions, doing surveys. They're having an open house. If you go on their website, FXB
Yeah.
website, you'll see the transit portion and the consultants.
so it's a
myself-
hired outside entity?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
they're doing a really big kind of public input participation
Yes.
effort and launch with their strategic plan development right now.
So, has King George returned to participating with the Fred Transit, or do they still not
I
participate?
don't believe they're.
They're
Okay.
not participating and basically because.
Oh, I can tell you why, because I was the head of that.
Yes.
So I can tell you why, because because I did my elected official job full-time. That was the only thing I did. So I had many days, hours to delve into everything. So we were not getting ridership. And citizens were saying it's because the stops are not in the areas where they're accessible or we're able to get where we need to get to, which one of them was right on the curve on Owens Drive. Heaven forbid, I wouldn't stand there either. You'd get killed, somebody coming around that curve. So I met with them, wanted them to change the stops. Here's what the public feedback says. Here's where the stops need to be. Here's what we need to do. And their response was that we would not dictate where those stops would go. So then I got a copy of all their minutes and reviewed them, and we literally only had 6 citizens who were using Fred, but we as King George were paying $60,000 as our contribution. I said, I can pay $10,000 and buy all 6 people a car, since Fred does not want to change where the stops are in order to better serve our community. We now had a YMCA. People were like, why can't the stop be at the YMCA? So instead we joined Colonial Beach Transit because they were willing to make the stops where we needed them to be, where our citizens could use them. So I would say if you have an issue with people using Fred, it's probably because the stops are not where the citizens who need the service need the stops to be.
And that's because, ma'am, that the people that made the stops and made the routes have cars. When you have a car, you could care less where the stops are at.
Yes,
We don't.
but
care where
unfortunately, the Fred folks weren't willing to work with us in King George.
But now we have a whole new group of people at Fredericksburg. I know, because I am very much an advocate for public transportation with
I am
Carolina
too.
County.
Yes.
And with King George. And I think under this new regime, everybody needs to come back to the table. Let's forget about what happened about.
No, I was just letting you know, that's why, right?
Well, and that's
So-
before I got here.
Yep,
so-
yep. No, I think it's great. And if there is a solution, I think absolutely engage the new board, absolutely.
I'm all
Absolutely,
for it.
yes.
I have no
Yes.
problem with one thing. Hey, look, because now with everything building up in King and in Caroline,
Yes.
and even with Spotsylvania, we just need to come back to the table and figure out what we're gonna do. When you say you want to give everybody, you would just pay it.
Oh, I was
No,
just,
as
right,
like-
but
as a thing,
in
but-
reference to, if only 6 people are using it, but you're paying $60,000 a year, I don't mean to get off topic.
Right,
We can have a
no, no,
sidebar.
no,
We
no,
can
no,
have a sidebar.
As staff running it, I have to be like,
Yep, no.
as long as it's fair.
No,
as
no,
you want.
no, no,
I get it,
no.
but-
We'll have a sidebar. So,
And I get it, and the whole thing is, like I said, if we want to reduce congestion and get more people to A and B and get these cars down, because the population that I deal with, they can't drive. Or they're either not old enough, physically able, or they're chronologically challenged, so they can't. So I just would like some more support for our Fred Ethics We Go.
Getting back to your comment, for the topics of interest, do you want to add a light rail discussion to the future agenda item?
Can I get back to you a little bit?
Okay, I am more than happy to.
So I was with Hampton Roads when they did the light rail, and it's a whole different entity in the big city for light rail than it is here for light rail. If the people are asking for it and it's gonna be viable, like financially viable, people can actually use it, then yes, I'm for it. But if we're just gonna put in some rails because somebody just wanna make some money off some rails, I'm not for it.
I understand VDOT was considering building like a salt building near the Route 17 commuter lot in Stafford. And I just want to point out that that area is above upstream from a pristine waterfall in Stafford County. And I think pardon me?
Sorry, you're saying the salt facilities upstream.
Yes.
Yeah, if they do choose that site, it's upstream from a pristine waterfall in Stafford County. It's probably one of the most significant waterfalls in the region. And that waterfall is on public land. It's on 1,800 acres of conservation easement. And I'm trying to get public access to it. But anyway, the situation is there was a groundwater study done many years ago in Stafford, and it basically said that on the fall line is between 2 aquifers. So you have the Piedmont, and then I don't know what the other aquifer it is, if it's White Water or what.
It's coastal or something.
Yeah, coastal. But anyway, it's the fault lines between two aquifers, and of course, that's where the waterfall is. And the groundwater study basically said that between those two aquifers, the plates, there's a recharge area. So it's very environmentally sensitive area. And for groundwater recharges, and you don't want to put like gas stations there. And I would think that you wouldn't want to put salt bins there. So I think that really needs to get looked at before VDOT makes a decision on that.
Is your supervisor aware of this issue?
I'm not sure.
What district are you?
That's the
in?
tip of the spear, I would say.
That's actually that district would be George Washington
With
district,
George Washington.
Yeah, but.
but it used to be Hartwood.
Yeah, I know it's George Washington. That's why I was asking, what district are you in?
I'm in Hartwood.
You're in Hartwood, okay.
That used to be Hartwood. So
These salt storage facilities usually enclosed, like with a roof and everything?
well,
Okay.
yeah, but they might be, but
Not all.
Transfer.
But when you have, thousands of truckloads going out of there, it's gonna be a problem.
Transfer.
And after places or situations like the rain we've had recently too, the stream literally comes right up to the commuter lot that ultimately connects down to England Run and then towards the waterfall.
So your supervisor is Daryl English, the new supervisor for George Washington.
Tay Diggs. Yeah, I have a meeting with him regarding certain things, so. I'm in George Washington.
Okay.
All right, last thing before we adjourn was just to make a comment that City of Fredericksburg folks, we are looking for a vice chair. So you do have a few folks that are eligible. If not, we will kind of dig in because we did make amendments for this. So if you are thinking about this, it's probably going to be something for the next meeting. And I think actually we might have an issue where Tim's out next meeting as well. So we might actually have to wait.
So it's our turn in the barrel based on the rotation.
So I don't know if Brett or Matt wants to make a return, but yeah, it'll be City of Fredericksburg.
And I do have one more
Oh,
thing
yeah.
for the topic of interest. It's regarding the Bridge in the Parkway project. I'm not sure if everyone is aware that the city of Fredericksburg approved the Silver Neon development in Celebrate Virginia South. And essentially, one of the bridge parkway options that was being investigated may be off the table now because of the fact that that development in the white area is right where option C was originally slated to potentially go. So, I mean, Spotsylvania's been against the bridge in the parkway. Fredericksburg and Stafford are obviously very, very supportive of it. So it kind of just seemed a little bit odd to me that the city of Fredericksburg rezoned the area and made it easy for the Silver Corporation to build a very large development there that eliminates one of the choices. I'm wondering if it was potentially to redirect the pathway that would go somewhat around that or to eliminate that choice.
For that, on that, the corridors themselves are just modeling corridors.
Right.
So they're not alignments or anything. That was something that was discussed because we can't produce a line basically with advanced knowledge of development. There's development within every single possible corridor within that. So
Sure.
that's conceptual. So that just might require that
Relocation.
Does it run high? Does it run low? Does it come through a different property? Is it something that is in negotiation with it? Well, as a whole, what FAMPO has kind of seen is that, or actually this is in general, whenever there's a discussion of a new major corridor road, you see a lot of developers just come in and try to get plans early on the books, even if construction isn't necessarily imminent. But yeah, that was something that the consultants are aware of. They have the other
Good.
kind of development items that the city has provided that they are eligible to provide as well, so that they are aware that that can change. And that's something that this river crossing study is actually going to build a more alternative alignment proposal, so.
Okay, very good.
Okay, is there anything else? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Yeah, y'all.
Sure.
Obviously. Whoever.